Welcome to another episode of the Servant Leadership Library. I'm your host, Nicholas Paluco, CEO of One to One, where we live and breathe managed IT and cybersecurity, and of course, leadership. Today, I have an absolute pleasure of introducing someone who's turned leadership into a calling, David Lapp, the CEO of Blessings of Hope. Now, David didn't just pop into the CEO role. Nope, this journey started in New Holland, Pennsylvania, in a big Amish family, no less. And by big, I mean 12 kids. That's some serious family leadership training right there. David's roots are on a dairy farm in Indiana, but in 2006, he moved back with his tribe to Lancaster, PA, to focus on his passion for helping others. David's co-founded Blessings of Hope, an organization that's taken the idea of food surplus and transformed it into community impact. Thinking of it as kind of turning corporate donations into meals for family in need. Under his leadership since 2018, Blessings of Hope has become a powerhouse for feeding people, because who needs waste when you can spread hope? David, his wife, Fanny, and 12 children, yes, you heard it right, live in Ephrata, PA, where he's not just leading a nonprofit, he's also making a difference every single day. So David, welcome to the podcast. We are thrilled to have you here to share your insight on servant leadership and how you've grown Blessings of Hope. So we really appreciate you coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for the invitation and just allowing me to be a part of what you're doing.
Absolutely. I think we're more honored to be part of your journey here. I mean, David, you grew up kind of in a large family, right? And worked on a dairy farm. How did your upbringing, develop your hard work and your leadership and kind of your community service?
Well, as a 5-year-old, as a 6-year-old, before I would go to school, I'd had to get up in the morning and, feed the calves, give the cows hay, that kind of thing. And, I usually joke that I learned to enjoy working some of it willingly. And, some of it was, child labor laws were, or child labor was, forced upon me. But I look back and I see it's one of the best things that could have happened in my life, just being taught to be responsible at a young age, being taught to actually enjoy working, and you're not just doing it for the paycheck, but doing it to contribute to the family.
Oh, that is wonderful. That's well said. And I think, the lessons that you took away kind of growing up on that, how are you applying that kind of to running such a large nonprofit such as Blessing is Hope?
Well, when I was about 17 to 19, we were in Indiana. We were on a dairy farm, and we were farming 400 acres with horses.
Wow.
And we had 2 herds of cows. I think it was around 100 cows that we milked twice a day. And just the out of the box mindset that our father, we didn't know that we couldn't do it, so we did it. And if you're on a farm, there's always work to do, but for some reason we got into custom hay wrapping on the side then yet to
Really?
take up all our free time. But I look back and those were I would say some of the most fun years of my growing up years, was just, being busy, being on the farm, challenging ourselves beyond the normal, and just being able to see God move in a mighty way. And we got the work done. We got it was just a fun time growing up with my brothers and a couple hired boys. And we did it. We didn't know we couldn't do it, so we did it.
Yeah, that's true, right? I always said when I was a kid that was the same for me. It's kind of like ignorance was bliss during that time, right? Like if dad said do it, we were hanging out with dad,
Yeah.
But it sounds like your father was quite an entrepreneur himself, kind of creating different ideas and different solutions. I bet that was a fun experience, right? But man, if anybody knows, taking care of cattle and milking, especially if you've not done that, that is an extremely difficult undertaking. And I mean
Yeah.
that it's there's zero vacation, there's zero time off. I mean that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe the Blessings of Hope's almost like a break a little bit from the 24/7. I don't know.
Well, with where things are at right now, we have a great team in place that runs the organization, and it's actually a blessing just to be able to empower them to do their piece of the organization and to run with their piece of it and watch their leadership develop as well.
Oh, I love that. I love that. You noted back in 2006 you moved back to Pennsylvania. Like what inspired that decision? Did it shape the direction, kind of the career and journey that you're on today?
So we grew up in New Holland, Pennsylvania. When I was 13, we moved to Indiana, and that
Okay.
was ultimately for cheaper farmland. We had
Ah,
a 70-acre farm here in Pennsylvania, and Dad wanted to give all the boys an opportunity to farm. There was 8 of us boys, and to put 8 boys on a 70-acre property isn't going to cut it here in Lancaster,
yeah.
Pennsylvania, with where the land prices were at. So we went to Indiana for cheaper farmland. And then in 2005, we were excommunicated from the old order Amish church. So we grew up horse and
Okay.
buggy, no electricity, no vehicles, not anything like that. And so we were on a journey with God in 2004,
Mm,
2005, and we no longer fit the religious mindset.
mm.
And God had us basically, God shook our box and we fell out, and He had bigger things for us. So when that all went down, we moved back to Pennsylvania in 2006.
Okay.
And that's when we joined 2 of my brothers, one of our sisters, and another couple, Aaron and Barbie Fisher, and we started Light of Hope Ministries more as a counseling ministry and as a
Okay.
church. And then
Okay.
out of that, we had a need for food for our own families. And Aaron had been helping at an outreach, giving away food. And he would bring food along home for our own families.
Okay.
Uh, so Aaron had grown up in a food insecure home, and somebody would bring them a box of food every couple of weeks, and it was just the whole idea of serving people was always in his blood. And one of the challenges that we saw early on was these large corporations have semi truckloads of food available to donate,
Mm.
but they don't want to deal with 50 organizations every day. So it's cheaper to
Ah,
just send it to the landfill and get rid of it. And then you have the nonprofits that want, 10 boxes of that semi truckload or maybe a pallet, but they can't take the whole semi load of fresh produce.
all of it. Ah,
So
okay.
that's where the idea came from for the distribution model as you see it today is being able to take the volume from the donor at the volume he wants to donate it and then make it available to the nonprofit at the volume that the nonprofit can use it.
Wow. I mean, that's huge thinking, and that's amazing. Like, I mean, what a blessing. I mean, no pun intended, right? Blessing
Yeah.
of hope. Like for those who need it, and the quality of it is so substantial. I know personally, working with them, I mean, it is a huge box of wonderful goods. It's not, I mean, I think some of them had, entire meals in there, which I think is quite impressive. I mean, how do you all manage that from like spoilage and whatnot? I mean, I'm sure that's just the same struggles as maybe like any distributor would be having too. Is it hard to manage that?
Well, it's definitely a challenge to keep the product moving because most of the product we get is closer to expiration date or like fresh
Okay.
produce. It's right. We might have a couple of days on it, but
Ah.
we do a lot through our food selection centers, and we also do outreaches where if something's hitting
Mm,
that point where it has to move, rather than just throw it out, we still want to send it to an outreach and have people that can
mhm.
still utilize it. Now we do have some spoilage. We do have produce that we'll sort. We have stuff that we have to throw out, but anything that we can't utilize goes into a methane digester or to animal feed. So
Oh,
we don't
wow.
send a lot of food to the landfills. We are, as much as possible, we try to utilize what we have to either be put back into, through a methane digester into fertilizer or to feed some animals.
Wow, that's unbelievable. I mean, you're really it also is helping in so many different ways, right? From a landfill piece, I
Um,
mean, that's one thing, but now you're able to actually feed and produce even more greater good. Do you like as you started this, right? I mean, it's quite large now, but what were like some of the early day challenges that you had to overcome?
well, 2006, we started in a 3-car garage, and growing that into 2010, committing to packing 7 boxes a week for a local pastor when you had, a
Ah,
couple pallets a week coming in, and sometimes it was a whole pallet of one item, and just stepping out in faith and believing that God would supply that. And,
yeah.
7 boxes turn into 12, turn into 20, turn into 50. And, I think it was 2012 when we shipped our first semi truckload of food. And it took a few months to collect enough of food to put, to make a semi truckload extra that we could ship out to an outreach.
Wow.
And you just step by step celebrating the small wins that God had for us today, and then taking the next step that he showed us.
Wow. I mean, I love that, right? Like I'm a Catholic boy, but like listening to that, and we call it kind of like knowing our faith and living our faith, like that gives me shivers because like ultimately we are to live our faith, right? And like to serve others, and like what you're doing is truly living that, but also with the trust, right? Like we say like, great things happen when you let go, and right, we're human beings and
Yeah.
we always want to control it. And like what an honor or what an ability that you all have to do that. Like I mean that I think me personally, that's something then that you contemplate every day in prayer of like, am I doing what you asked me to do, right?
Yeah.
And am I holding on to it, or am I really letting go? And the great things seem to happen in my life when I let it go. But man, sometimes the ignorance of the human mind is like, well, you can maybe, change that. I'm very inspired by um, kind of the understanding of how you're living that. That's just unbelievable.
So it's one thing when you say you're going to trust God no matter what, but then when the no matter what shows up, and you have to, you're facing a deadline, and there's 100 employees dependent on God coming through
Yeah,
here, and it's like, what are you going to do about this? And it's like,
yeah.
you learn to trust God at a different level.
Oh, you're absolutely right. As you grow a business similar to mine, my father, actually, I'm first generation of this country. My father came here when he was 5 through Ellis Island, but the Mennonite church actually paid his debt off because they came here with debt, and we landed in Lancaster County because of the graciousness of the Mennonite church, and he worked on Amish and Mennonite farms till their debt was paid off.
Wow.
And so my dad, this Polish boy that spoke German and Dutch and everything like that, he's in this one room Amish schoolhouse, and and my dad was like, yeah, they made fun of me because I had a funny accent. And but what the just the beauty of the community to do that. My father said, Nick, your whole life, have your faith and your ability to work hard, and everything will be fine. And man, there's truth to that, but sometimes you get misguided when things are going well, right?
So
Yeah.
kannst du Deutsch schwätzen?
Yeah. Funny that you say that my father too, as a kid and still today, I didn't realize growing up on the commitment to the respect of the community to give back. And we would drive like 35, 40 miles away or 30 minutes away to get like a mower fixed. And I'm like, Dad, like this is an Amishman fixing our mower, and like, why are we driving this far away? And he goes, you give back to those who helped you. And I'm like, oh, so as a young kid, my dad's speaking Dutch, and I'm like, I have no idea what he's talking about here. But I didn't learn that till many years later in my life, on how important it is to give and to receive, right? And when you have a blessing, so that's
Yeah.
bringing a lot of heartfelt memories to the goodness that you're providing. So I
Yeah.
didn't mean to kind of derail our conversation there. um, what you're doing is really the definition of servant leadership, right? Like, how does that philosophy influence, the people that you bring on board to help you? Like, how do you teach them or instill the values that you have, and the feeling that you have, and the just the true mission?
Yeah, I mean, it comes through, through meetings, through communication, through just sharing hearts. We do
Mm.
3 days a year where we do an all-day employee training team building event
Okay.
where we'll bring a speaker in, or we'll just watch a video series or something, and it's a collaborative day of just getting to know who we're working with, that kind of a thing.
Ah,
And that's been very good for our team, is just to, as we keep growing, and we have employees at different locations, just getting to know each other, getting to work together, or serve together for a day. The one in October, we did a box packing shift where
okay.
everybody came to our Leola facility, and we packed boxes, for the morning,
Okay.
and stuff like that. And it's also, we have a monthly book reading program where
Mm,
we
okay.
offer, we have a book of the month, and then we offer our employees a $50 gift card to a local restaurant if they read the book and write a
Ah.
report on it.
Oh, I
And
like that.
it's interesting to see the people that do that on their own time automatically step up through the organization,
Wow.
and the people that self-educate, that have that mindset of going above and beyond, are the ones that automatically step into the next levels of leadership.
Oh, that's absolutely wonderful. Like I think we when what I hear you saying too is kind of it's like the we before me. Like it's about the greater good in mind. Like when you get into selecting people to work with you in your organization and mission, like is there a way that you identify mission-based people or people that think beyond just themselves? I mean, that sounds, I guess, a little harsh, but you know.
Well, and, everybody wants good employees, so I mean, just like anybody else, we've hired quite a few people the last couple of years. We went from 8 employees to like 110, I believe we are right now,
Wow.
since
Wow.
2020. So, 4 years hiring 100
Wow.
people, and yeah, there was some people that didn't work out, but a lot of this can be, just this is what needs to be done, and keep putting the right people in the right positions.
Yeah, and I guess people probably are attracted too to uh, of the of the mission of the organization, I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we,
Uh,
we have a lot of good people that are, serving here and being a part of what we're doing.
Wow, that's an amazing growth. Eight to 100 people. That's a lot to handle in a
Yeah.
small amount of time.
Yeah. And in,
Wow.
in that in that same period of time, we had volunteers, that whoever showed up to volunteer that day was there to work, to having over 40,000 registered volunteers in that same period of time.
Wow.
And we see about 1,300 volunteer positions a week filled right now. And it's just the not just building the organization, but building the processes, building the systems of scheduling volunteers and how all that's going to work. So it's been quite a journey.
Wow, that is unbelievable. That is a lot of volunteers. I mean, for to today's area too of trying to gather volunteers, like that is an enormous amount of volunteers. What kudos to your team as well to be able
Yeah.
to cultivate such a wonderful group of people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's absolutely amazing just to see what the team has done and what God has done, through our efforts to be able to actually have an impact on the people that we meet.
Wow, wow. And we talk a lot about like faith drives a lot of kind of the mission of a lot of things. And how do you meld kind of the faith component and the leadership component of kind of building an organization, right? Like there's the faithful component and what is developed of it, and now it's getting larger, and you have this like business component. How do you stay true to like the true mission while you're getting into this like really large scale business, right? Like,
Well, you have to be able to steward what God has entrusted to us, and that
mm,
includes paying our bills. That includes, we have not figured out yet how to roll into a Flying J truck stop and tell them that by faith we need fuel in this truck. They want a credit card. Our vendors, yeah, we're a faith-based organization, but we're also a business that has, we have vendors, we have people that we are responsible to pay as well, because it doesn't look good to be a Christian organization that can't pay your bills, just because
right,
you're a Christian organization. So,
right.
developing that whole side of it and making sure that you're able to we've had crazy growth, but being able to in that process still sustain our cash flows. And I mean, I've learned a few things the last couple of years around that.
That is a lot. That's a lot. So from the aspects of kind of you mentioned you work with a lot of corporations and whatnot. Like how does that affect, like, how do you choose those corporations that you work with? Are they more sustainable organizations? Are they, is there a selection criteria to the organizations that you work with?
When you say organization, are you talking like vendors?
Vendors, yes, like
Oh.
the ones that are providing the food that you're distributing and whatnot.
So the organizations that are providing the food, those would be, so all the food's donated. We don't buy anything. It would be
Okay.
all, donation. And we have a couple guys out on the road, meeting with different organizations, just building those relationships.
Okay.
Uh, as far as from a like a fuel vendor or something like that, yeah, we do we'll interview a few different organizations and see who's a good fit. And I mean, it always benefits them if they're already a donor or if they're
Right.
already involved in the organization in some capacity,
Yeah.
because we believe in, supporting the people that support us. And if a local fuel company, if they're very similar in price, but one sends volunteers or they donate,
Mm,
they're going to get the upper hand. It's just
right.
just that's just automatically going to happen.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. As you've started to scale the business as well, like what would you say are kind of the most significant achievements that you're proud of recently?
Just the way the team is stepping in and leading different parts of the organization and being able to delegate that effectively to the point where most of the day-to-day operations I don't have to worry about. We
Mm,
have people in place that run the day-to-day. I don't even know who's working today. I don't know. I mean, I have an idea. I have ways of finding out if I need
yeah.
to, but the team is operating to the point where they make it happen. And I would say that's probably one of our biggest successes is having the people in place that can run the day-to-day operations of it, which frees me up to make sure the big picture is intact and the future vision is going to where it needs to go.
That's true leadership right there. That's amazing. In such a short amount of time with that amount of people, that is unbelievable. That's
Yeah,
unbelievable.
the less I have to do, the more gets done.
Yeah,
The more I can stay
absolutely.
out of their way and empower them to do the work, the more gets done because it's not all coming back to me calling all the shots. It's, you have teams of people that lead portions of the organization.
I love it. I love it. That empowerment. That as you have a large family, right? So I'm sure that's a lot to manage, and you're spending time here. But I wonder if the you've mastered the art of delegation with such a large family. I don't know, how does being part of a large family and running an organization, does anything have in common? Like, I mean, it's a whole. I only have 4 children, so I'm like, wow. Our families in our community have been up to 12, and I know that's a lot of mouths to feed and a lot of work to delegate. So how do you combine both of those efforts?
Well, if you had to have 4 children, you did all the work. Now, if you would have had five or six, the older ones could have helped raise the younger ones. That's how
You're a
that
smart
works.
man.
Just like an organization, as you keep growing, if you run a small organization where you have to be involved in everything, you have to be there every day. You have to be
Mm,
actively engaged. But as you grow up, our youngest are twin boys that are 2 years old. When they were 4 weeks old, we could leave them home with our oldest daughter, and we could go out for a date night. We have built-in babysitters.
oh, I love
And
it.
just like an organization, as you grow, I'm not saying they're built-in babysitters, but you have built-in leaders that then
Yeah.
lead people that help make it happen.
Bring that community together. That my friend Sean then has something. He's working on something there, though. I think he's on like number 6. So I he speaks about that quite often. That the older ones take care of the younger ones, and it
They
starts
do.
to,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that is a great, and that's a great connection there. Well, what do you think the future goals look like from the vision standpoint of you running this organization? How do you see it to continue to grow? What challenges maybe do you see?
What we're seeing is a national organization.
Wow.
Food waste is a national issue. Food insecurity is a national issue. We have a self-funding model through our food selection. At this point, the food selection centers that we have generate about 75% of our cash flow,
Okay.
and a little over half of the volume generates about 75% of the cash flow.
Wow.
So what we're seeing is if we can take more of the food that we're sending to outreaches and just simply because of volume and move that through another selection center very quickly, the handling fee that
Mm,
these selection centers generate will cover our entire operational budget. And
wow.
in order to do that, we're going to need a few more selection centers. And as I said, food is a national food waste is a national issue. We live in a nation that wastes a semi truckload of food every 13 seconds. Last year, we distributed 28 million pounds of food,
Wow.
which, according to our calculations, is about 3.5 10,000ths of a % of the food waste.
Wow.
So we have barely covered the tip of the iceberg of what's out there. And so what we're seeing is building out, into other areas with a distribution center and then our food selection center model and serving every major city in America with a selection center. And
Wow.
to do that, it's going to take significant resources. So you asked,
Yeah.
what some of the challenges that we see is it's
Yeah.
going to be raising the capital that we need to build that out. We had, quite a bit of discussion already around do we just go out and lease buildings
Mm,
but then you're dealing with landlords, you're dealing with rent increases, you're dealing with who
right.
knows what all. And what we've actually done this year, we've just launched a private investment fund to invite the
Wow.
community to invest into our real estate needs as we grow to so we can build the whole thing privately as a nonprofit, have full control of the real estate as we grow, and be able to expand into other areas and utilize more of the food that is being wasted and serve more people.
Wow, that is extremely smart, right? I can only assume if you're owning the real estate, give you some equity, then you'd be able to use that equity to potentially then leverage that for some more property. That is you definitely have it right with that delegation out there constantly thinking big. That is amazing. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
That is very educational for all of us, right? I think a lot of people that get into their work think that being in it is the successful part. But what you're showing is being out of the day to day is more successful
Yeah.
from, working on it instead of in it. And
Yeah.
I think that that's a really great lesson for everyone to hear because too much time goes by that many people think they have to be in the business, and or maybe can't figure out ways to educate someone else to be able to do that part. And I think you're a master of that. Yeah, that's
Well, I've heard this saying a number of years ago. It said the only thing worse than training an employee and he goes to your competitor is if you don't train him and he stays.
mm, well said.
And it's like, if we invest into people, if we invest in their education and they go to a competitor, they go to someone else, we still had an impact on their life for the rest of their lives.
Right.
Whereas if we just let them stay here and they're not getting the job done, and nobody's growing, nobody's benefiting. And
Right.
that's what we like to see is to be able to invest into our people, even if that means they go out and start their own business or whatever. It's about building God's kingdom. It's not about building blessings of hope.
I love that. And tell us about like the amount of people, I think you said it earlier, that you're impacting. So the way the model works, from my understand, is that an organization would purchase the boxes and then distribute them. Is that right? Do
So,
I have
so
that
all
correctly?
the food's free. We get the food free. We give it away for free. But we have we're
Okay.
a service-based organization. So
Okay.
the organizations that are giving away the food, so we receive food from over 1,500, I mean over 200 organizations on the
Wow.
corporate side, and then we have over 1,500 nonprofits that we serve with that food.
Wow.
So what we saw a number of years ago is if we if we don't have any kind of a donation or a handling fee system, we're having to do all the fundraising to
Right.
distribute the product. If we
Yeah.
have 1,500 organizations that are each doing an outreach and they're raising a couple $100 to cover the cost for their outreach, and we bring that into a central model, now we can be a privately funded organization that can empower the church to be the hands and feet of Jesus. We can empower these organizations to share, classes, to share gospel message, whatever, when they're giving out food. Whereas if we're tied into the government funding or the state funding, whatever, then we
Right.
have all kinds of restrictions that go with that.
Right.
So our model is, rather than go after all kinds of government grants or whatever and try to find all the free money, let's empower the church to take care of the community, empower them to raise a few dollars what they need to do their outreach, funnel that into Blessing of Hope, and then we can make the product available to them, at a very reasonable handling fee cost.
Right. Oh, I love that. That's wonderful. And for those that are listening that might be in nonprofit work or trying to grow their nonprofit, what advice would you have for them?
Think bigger. There's we're limited by our own imaginations. We're limited by our own self-inflicted limitations. And we had this conversation, I think it was 2018 or 2019, as an executive team. We had this conversation where we had so many people tell us over the years that they knew God called them to something, and they would fight it, they would struggle with it, they would do everything they could to educate God what was possible. And so we had this conversation around what would happen if we would never say no to God. Instead of us trying to educate God what's possible, we would say, yes, Lord, show us how to do this. Show us how to get through this next challenge. Show us how to overcome this next obstacle. And we look back to the last 6 years, and it's just incredible what God has done.
It says that too. I was reading a passage the other day that it said exactly that, right? And it says also, it says, hey, listen, you can't just receive, right? You have to ask. You have to ask specifically, how do you want me to do this, or how do you want me to solve this? And I was reading the one passage, and it just basically said, what do you want, right? The Lord says, what are you looking for?
Yeah.
And I think that is amazing. And they said that tenfold will give to those who, follow him. But I think that's amazing. I'm very inspired. It's quite amazing. It just, and I love the idea, think big, right? I think I'm taking that from many nonprofits sometimes think small and I have no money, right? And that's what I took. So I could be wrong, but it's about like thinking bigger and then solving for that problem, right?
So the question I would have, if as a nonprofit, if you're listening to this and you say, I'm just a small nonprofit without any money, why is that? Think beyond the today, and think about what God called you to. Think about what God entrusted into your hand, and if God wants to bring something, he also has a way to fund that. And sometimes we have to think outside the box. Sometimes we have to get a little creative. But I am 100% convinced that there's more money available to nonprofits than the nonprofits have vision to spend it.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is I just heard a statistic a few weeks ago. Right now, there's $1.5 trillion in donor advised funds in America.
Wow.
So what I heard when I heard that was there's $1.5 trillion that the businessman already got his donation, is his benefits for. It's no longer the businessman's money. There's no way he can bring that back into his business. This has to go to a nonprofit. So this $1.5 trillion is sitting there waiting on a vision. Can we share a vision with the businessman that he wants to get behind and help fund for God's kingdom? So that's what I hear when I hear that side of it. And I know quite a few people that they want to make a difference. They already made their money. They want to make a difference with those funds. Right. And can we share a vision that they can connect to and help them fulfill their vision? If all they have is money, that's a sad place to be. Can we help them fulfill the rest of their life by giving them vision and helping them see their money be put to work and actually impact people's lives for eternity?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You can't take it with you.
That's
right?
right.
It's the
That's
root
right.
of all evil. If when I was a young boy, I went to my pastor and I said, "Help me understand this. Why do we work? Why are we taught to work to make money when what's the purpose of that? Like if I can make more money, that feels wrong. Like and answer that for me, right?" And he looks at me, right, like with his stern and confident eyes, and he says, "Listen, God might have given you the ability to do that, but where it is in good or bad is how you use it. If you
Hmm.
hold it gluttony over people, then that's not good.
Right.
But if God gave you the talent to do it and you can help others that can't help themselves with that talent, then
Yep.
that is what you're meant to do." And I didn't, as a young man, I was like, okay, well, I thought don't go make money. Don't be don't be bound by money. And he
Yep.
brought just a different perspective. And I think that's exactly what you're bringing, right?
Uh,
You're connecting to right to someone has a need, but they want to connect and see how that need is driven. And you've created a sustainable way through that project of like acquiring real estate. They can see it, they can
yep.
connect to it, they can see the growth. And I think that's very astute because a lot of nonprofits sometimes um, don't see it in that way and connect it. They asked for their mission, but they really aren't asking for where we need it and
Hmm.
how it connects to where they're going. I think that's amazing.
I think there's way too many nonprofits that are limited by the leaders' decisions around what they can do, and they're not allowing God to show what God can do. And
Yeah.
you know, if I'm building an organization for my own fleshly gains or whatever, I'm gonna have limitations of what I believe is possible. But if
Hmm.
we open this up to let God build it, like, okay, Lord, what do you want to do here? We
Right.
are stewards here. We're here to steward to bring stewardship and impact for God's kingdom. And that includes food, that includes finances, that includes volunteers. How can we, as a community, have a greater impact for God's kingdom? To the point where if somebody in the community has a need, they look to the church for answers, not to the bar. They look to the
Hmm.
church for ways to help out their neighbor, and instead of everything else that they look to anymore.
To do that. I that's well said. As a kid growing up, everything was bound around the church. Everything we did was around the church, how we helped each other, how we helped others. And I think society has changed that a little bit.
Hmm.
And I this is odd to say, but I've been God works in funny ways because some of the conversations that I've been having with him last week, he said, pay attention to who you serve. And I was like, whoa, what? Like, now I'm like, what are you trying to tell me? Right? Like focus on who you're serving. And then listening to you, I'm like, God, you work in interesting ways. You send different messengers talking about different messages. And so I thank you for that. It's amazing how connecting for the greater good of others and serving just solves a lot of other problems, you
Yeah.
know, because we're thinking about others outside of our own selfishness. And I think that that's amazing. And sometimes you feel that you're probably like the only one, right? Like I'm sure, even for myself, like, well, why should we be good? Why should we help others? That's kind of catastrophizing sometimes because it feels like society is against you. But ultimately, that was the same for Christ, right? And
Hmm.
everywhere he went, it was a trial and tribulation, but he saw everyone as good. And I'm like, wow, what a unbelievable, thing every time that you get frustrated. So what a great understanding of living truly what you're trying to accomplish.
Hmm.
Um, you talk about the books that you read. So what reading is impactful to you? What do you get the most out? Maybe authors or topics?
A lot of the books are on leadership, education, stretching our own imagination, stretching our own limitations,
Mm.
building, trust building, team building, those kinds of books.
Mm.
Few of the authors that I enjoy are like John Maxwell, Dave Horsager. Yeah, there's quite a few that we've put out there already. Excellence Wins is a good one. There's I think we have about 25 or 30 on the list right now that we've done the last 2 years. So
Wow.
yeah.
Those are great books. Also, there's one that brings to mind for me just on your people, your donors, and what you do. There's a book called The Go-Giver.
I've read, yep, that was one of them that we did. Yep.
Wow. Yeah, that just is like, wow, that connects kind of the portion of what you're saying to other maybe businessmen that are looking to really figure out how to really enact their giving. Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. For young people that are getting starting their families and starting to figure out how they're going to serve the Lord, what advice do you have for them?
Well, you got to start somewhere. So, if you can volunteer at an organization that you believe in, and you can learn leadership, you can learn to uh, just beyond the normal. If you can find an older person to sit with and glean their wisdom, there's all kinds of ways to advance your education for free. Whether that's one-on-one talking to somebody, whether that's watching a YouTube. One thing our teacher did, I have an eighth grade education. I don't have any high school, no college. But one thing our teacher did is she taught us how to learn. And what I mean by that is, rather than just telling us this is the answer or the shortest way to get to the answer, she told us to read the instructions, understand the principles behind how we got to the answer. And if you want to learn something in today's day and age, there's YouTubes out there on almost any topic you
Right.
want to learn about that you can watch for free, or you can sit there scrolling Facebook for hours on end, and at the end of the night you had nothing. So
Yeah.
it's all depending on, if you want to learn, if you want to advance your skills and your impact on eternity, educate yourself. Be a self-motivated leader, be a self-motivated individual that is able to step out, and the first person to lead is yourself.
Right.
You can look at everybody else and what they should be doing or what they're doing wrong, but until you step into that role, or until you try it, until then you just have an opinion.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
It's when you step in and you try something and you overcome it, that's when you gain the authority to then teach it to other people, because until then you just have an opinion.
Wow. Wow. I love it. I love it. And I think it's also, it says, hey, if I have a problem, the problem is me.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? We can't change others. We can encourage them, but we can change ourselves.
Hmm.
Right? I think is maybe what I'm hearing. Yeah, that's great. And it's as we kind of wind down a little bit today, like what would be maybe the most impactful leadership lesson that you learned, or maybe some words of wisdom from the business side of things?
You got to start somewhere. And I love the quote. I'm not even sure who said it, but I heard this quote. It says, "I am only one, but still I am one. I can't do everything, but I refuse to do nothing." And if we can go through life and remember that, even if something looks overwhelming, if a task comes up that we don't think we can accomplish or that we can overcome, can we start somewhere? Can we do something?
Mm,
And as the saying goes, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You have to start somewhere. And if this huge mountain opens up in front of you, you can try to scale the mountain in one leap, or you can take that next step.
yep.
And you
Yeah.
can you can trust God to show you the step today that you need to take today, instead of worrying about tomorrow's problems today. If you worry about tomorrow's problems today, you just get frustrated.
Yeah, that's well said. That's well said. As we kind of wrap up today, do you have any parting comments or feedback?
Push beyond the ordinary. There's there's one life to live on earth, and while we're here, we can choose to live a comfortable life to where we're going through life and live and die, and nobody even knows that we lived. Or
Right.
we can step out in faith and allow God to take us beyond what we believe is possible to what He called us to, and actually have an impact on society that will last for generations.
Mm, That's that's great. It's kind of saying, in a way that it's kind of the stories and the memories that carry on, kind of instead of the things and the items that you have. It's more of, what's the impact that you've had on others. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, don't decide for God what's possible in your life. Let Him lead you and go beyond the ordinary.
Oh, very insightful, very insightful. And David, we appreciate it. And everyone, this is a wrap, unfortunately. I would love to talk to David for another couple hours here, but he probably would, he's got work to do. And that's a wrap on this episode of Servant Leadership Library. Huge thanks to David Lapp, the CEO of Blessings of Hopes, for sharing not only his journey from his Amish farm life to leading a powerful nonprofit, but also his insights in how servant leadership can truly transform lives. Whether it's your family of 12 or thousands of families in need across the globe, David, you've given us so much to think about, from the value of faith in leadership to the power of turning food surplus into real impact. You're running a nonprofit, you manage a large family, and you make a massive difference all at once. I think I need to kind of up my game here a little bit. So, for our listeners, if you've been inspired by David's story or learned something new about servant leadership, don't forget to subscribe. Don't also forget to check out Blessings of Hope and how you can volunteer. And leave us a review or share any of the episodes so it impacts others. So, thank you again for tuning in to Servant Leadership Library. I'm your host, Nicholas Paluco, reminding you to lead with purpose, serve with passion, and but maybe also consider starting your own 12-person team at home. I don't know. Until next time, stay humble, stay hungry, and keep serving.